Every evening at exactly 6 o'clock, an old man polished the same pair of women's shoes. He placed them neatly beside the front door, straightened them carefully, and whispered only 4 words. "You'll need these tomorrow." The neighbors thought he had lost his mind. But no one knew the heartbreaking promise hidden behind those shoes. This is the unforgettable story of Shoes by the Door. The little blue house at the end of Willow Lane had become strangely quiet. Years ago, laughter spilled through its windows. Fresh flowers bloomed beneath the porch. Music drifted into the street every Sunday morning. Now, only silence remained. The house belonged to 79-year-old Arthur Bennett. Every morning, he swept the porch. Every afternoon, he watered roses that no longer bloomed as brightly. And every evening, without fail, he carried a small wooden box from the bedroom. Inside rested a pair of worn brown leather shoes. They belonged to his wife, Eleanor. She had passed away 3 years earlier. Arthur gently wiped away imaginary dust with an old handkerchief. He polished each shoe until it shone. Then he walked to the front door, bent down slowly, and placed them side by side on the welcome mat. To anyone watching, it seemed like the habit of a lonely old man unable to accept reality. But to Arthur, it was something much deeper. For 54 years, Eleanor had always kicked off her shoes by that same door. Every evening after work, Arthur would hear the familiar click of her heels on the front steps. She would push open the door and smile before saying exactly the same words. "I'm home," Arthur would answer without looking up from his newspaper. "I was waiting." It became their ritual. Thousands of ordinary evenings. Thousands of ordinary smiles. Until one winter afternoon, she never came home. A sudden heart attack while visiting the local market stole her away without warning. Arthur received a phone call instead of hearing footsteps. The silence that followed echoed through every room of the house. Friends encouraged him to pack away her belongings. "It's time to move on," they gently said. But Arthur couldn't. Not because he believed she would return, but because every object carried a memory. Her favorite teacup, the blue scarf hanging by the coat rack, the recipe book stained with flour, and especially those shoes, the last pair she wore home. He couldn't bear to hide them in a closet. So every evening, he placed them by the door, exactly where she had always left them. Months turned into years. Neighbors noticed. Children whispered as they walked past. "There are those shoes again." Some people smiled sympathetically. Others quietly shook their heads. The new mail carrier once asked, "Why do you leave them there every night?" Arthur smiled softly. "Because love has habits." The young man frowned. "I don't understand." Arthur looked toward the empty hallway. When you've loved someone for more than half a century, your heart keeps expecting to hear them. One rainy afternoon, a little girl named Lily knocked on Arthur's door. She couldn't have been older than 10. She pointed at the shoes. "Mister, why doesn't the lady ever wear them?" Arthur hesitated, then invited her inside. Over warm chocolate chip cookies, he told her about Eleanor. How she laughed so hard she'd snort. How she danced barefoot in the kitchen. How she sang terribly but confidently. How every anniversary she insisted on slow dancing in the living room even when no music played. Lily listened quietly. When Arthur finished, she asked a question no adult ever had. "Do you still talk to her?" Arthur smiled. "Every day." "What does she say?" He laughed through watery eyes. "Mostly that I've overwatered her roses." The next afternoon, Lily returned. She carried something wrapped in newspaper. "I made this." Inside was a small wooden sign painted in bright blue letters. "Love lives here." Arthur hung it beside the front door, just above Eleanor's shoes. As the months passed, more neighbors stopped by, not out of pity, but because Arthur had become the keeper of stories. Teenagers asked for marriage advice. Young couples came after arguments. Widows sat with him in silence. He always pointed toward the shoes. Love isn't measured by how long someone stays, it's measured by what remains after they're gone. One autumn evening, Arthur didn't place the shoes outside. For the first time in over 1,000 days, the doorway was empty. The neighborhood noticed immediately. Lily rushed over after school. She found Arthur sitting quietly in his favorite chair. He looked unusually tired. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just didn't have the strength today." Without saying a word, Lily walked to the bedroom. She found the wooden box, carefully carried it back, polished the shoes just as Arthur always had, then placed them gently beside the front door. Exactly straight. Exactly even. Arthur watched with tears in his eyes. You remembered, Lily smiled. So will everyone else. The following week, something remarkable happened. A bouquet of fresh flowers appeared on Arthur's porch. No note. The next morning, someone baked bread. The day after, the young couple mowed his lawn. Soon, the neighborhood created an unspoken schedule. No one announced it. No one organized it. They simply helped. Arthur had spent years teaching everyone what enduring love looked like. Now, that love returned to him. One snowy December evening, Arthur placed the shoes by the door one last time. He sat beside the fireplace, held Eleanor's favorite photograph, and quietly closed his eyes. When neighbors checked on him the next morning, he was gone. Peacefully, smiling. The photograph still rested in his hands. At his funeral, Lily carried the brown leather shoes. She set them gently beside Arthur's casket. Then read a letter he had written months earlier. If you're reading this, it means I've finally gone where Eleanor has been waiting. Please don't cry for me. We've simply ended the longest goodbye, and if you ever pass our little house, remember, love isn't what ends. When someone dies, it's what continues in the hearts they leave behind today. The blue house belongs to another family. But one thing remains unchanged. By the front door, resting inside a small glass display case, are Eleanor's brown leather shoes. Beneath them hangs Lily's wooden sign. Love lives here. Visitors often stop to read it. Parents tell their children the story. Newlyweds leave flowers. Widows leave handwritten notes. Because one ordinary pair of shoes became a reminder that true love never really disappears. Sometimes, it simply waits patiently, right by the door. If someone you love were to walk through your front door tonight, what would you say? Don't wait for tomorrow to speak the words your heart already knows. Call them. Visit them. Hug them. Tell them you love them. Because memories are precious. But shared moments are even more so. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes that love never truly ends. Every week, we bring you heartfelt stories of hope, loss, resilience, and the extraordinary beauty found in ordinary lives. Until next time, remember, some doors may close, but love always finds a way home.